He is usually introduced as a top economist, as a bestseller writer of more than 20 books, of teacher and lecturer at the university, the president and founder of the Foundation on Economic Trends, and as an advisor of political and business leaders in the world, governments, mayors and aldermen of cities and metropolitan areas. He is all that. But that's not the way I'm going to introduce him to you. Several weeks ago, we had a conference call in preparation of this lecture. And of course, we discussed all kinds of things like the specific content of this lecture. We discussed stage, light and sound facilities. And we also asked a question, Mr. Rifkin, how shall I address you as a host on stage? Well, Mr. Rifkin said, I'm a man at respectable age, so Mr. Rifkin will do. He is a man at respectable age. That I can't deny. But he is still strong or young at heart, I said, and I replied. And if you translate it more into the Dutch language and sayings, you could say he has a youthful mind, or he has a youthful spirit. And the spirit is the word which inspires me. Why should a man of respectable age travel the whole world, having big, enormous jet lags, to share his knowledge and to tell his ideas? Why does he spend so much time to write books and to try to influence us and to try to make us an ambassador? He must have a massive purpose, a massive transformative purpose. He is a man with a mission and a man with a vision. Please open your mind for his vision this afternoon. Give him a backhand from all the way down to the stage, Mr. Jeremy Rifkin. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for rearranging the chairs. You don't want to see a 70-year-old guy going like this all afternoon. Now, I'm going to ask you a little favor. Please put down your cell phones, your iPads. If you're out having a drink with someone, I don't think you put the iPad in front of them, right? Hopefully not. So just put them all down. We're going to have a nice conversation. You know, it's a pleasure being in the Netherlands. The reason I like the Netherlands, it's so like America, in the sense that we always have a saying about Americans, what you see is what you get, straightforward. Same here in the Netherlands. And secondly, the innovative spirit, the risk-taking in this country. You are risk-takers. You're very much like we are in the United States. I'm always very comfortable when I'm here as a result. But I'm going to start on a very somber note this afternoon. I hope it'll end up being a liberating reflection. You'll have to be the judge. GDP is slowing in every country in the world. The reason? Productivity has been declining for 20 years in every country in the world. The result is unemployment is high everywhere, and especially among the young millennial generation. And our economists now tell us that we can look forward to 20 years of no growth or slow growth. Here's the sad reality. We've had 2 industrial revolutions in market capitalism. And at the end of this long stretch, in 2015, think about this statistic. The 80 richest individuals in the world today, you could put them in this part of the room. Their combined wealth equals the accumulated wealth of 1/2 the human beings living on Earth. There's something deeply wrong with the way we're organizing our economic life with each other on this planet. And now this economic crisis is compounded by an even deeper environmental crisis. We have spent 2 industrial revolutions digging up the burial grounds of the Carboniferous era. And we've turned all that carbon into a great civilization, but at a cost. We're now paying the entropy bill. If you're an engineer, you understand what I'm saying. We have massive amounts of CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide clogging the atmosphere, and we just can't get enough of the sun's energy back off the planet. What's terrifying about climate change, and we're in real time now, is it changes the water cycles of the earth. And I wish this were explained, because then we would be justifiably terrified. Terrified. It changes the water cycles of the earth. People don't get this, so they'll say, wow, we had 8 feet of snow in Boston last winter. It was a once in 1,000 years. It must not be global warming with all that snow. It's a misunderstanding of what climate change does. Climate change changes the water cycles of the earth. This is what's going on. We're the watery planet. We go to other planets, we look for water, no water, we're not interested. Everyone's excited now because we've seen some kind of briny, salty water on the Mars. There may be life. Our ecosystems have developed over millions of years based on the cloud covers and the water cycles, the hydrologics of the planet. For every 1 degree that the temperature goes up on Earth from climate change, global warming emissions, the atmosphere is sucking up 7% more precipitation from the ground. The heat is forcing that precipitation up more quickly. We're getting concentrated precipitation in the cloud covers around the world. The result is more extreme water events, more extreme winter snows, more dramatic spring flooding, more prolonged summer droughts and wildfires, more Category 3, 4, and 5 hurricanes. I'll just use my country as an example. This year, we're out of water in California. This isn't short term. We're out of water, and we feed a lot of the world. We had, this summer, my wife and I were in British Columbia on vacation. We planned it for months, and when we're coming in, the pilot says, there's smoke coming in. We thought he meant fog. He meant smoke. We get to our hotel, the whole hotel is full of smoke, because there's wildfires over millions of acres of land. This was all summer, from British Columbia to California, wildfires, millions of acres, ruined. This fall, a few weeks ago in the Carolinas, we had a storm and floods. They said it was a 1,000-year storm. Once every 1,000 years. It's now the new normal. In the Philippines, they just had a hurricane, which was the most powerful hurricane in history. This is now going on everywhere. This is only 2015. We have a runaway water cycle. It is absolutely terrifying. Let me say that I've been working on the issue of energy and climate change in the 1970s, and I thought we had more time. For years and years, I did not understand the feedback loops. That every time one thing emerges, 10 more feedback loops escalated exponentially. We are in a runaway water cycle on this planet. Our ecosystems are not able to catch up to this water cycle change. We are now in the 6th extinction event of life on Earth. Our scientists explained to us that we've had 5 wipeouts in 450 million years, well before humans were here. And each time the chemistry of the planet shifted suddenly, massive die-out. And each time, 10 million years to recover biodiversity in this little oasis called life in the universe. We are now in the 6th extinction event, real time, no models. And I want you to listen to this if you're a parent or a grandparent, or if you're a young person just getting married. Our scientists tell us that we could see the elimination of over half the species of life on Earth by the last quarter or the last decades of this century. We don't know if the human race can make it. This is hard to hear, but we are in denial. 99.5% of all the species of life that have ever been on this little planet have come and gone. Those are not good odds. We have an economic crisis. Now that's given rise to climate change. Our species in peril. What do we do? We need a new economic vision for the world that's compelling. We need an economic game plan for that vision that's deliverable. In order to create the right economic plan, we need to have an understanding of how the great economic paradigm shifts in history occur. If we know how they occur, we can get a roadmap here in the Netherlands and Europe and around the world, and a compass that may allow us to create a new journey very quickly for the human race, because we're running out of decades now. There have been at least 7 major economic paradigm shifts in history. And what's interesting anthropologically, they share a common denominator. At a moment of time, 3 technologies emerge and converge to create what we call in engineering a general purpose technology platform, an infrastructure that fundamentally changes the way we manage, power, and move economic activity. What are those 3 defining technologies? Number 1, new communication technologies to more efficiently manage the economic activity. Number 2, new sources of energy to more efficiently power the economic activity. Number 3, new modes of transportation to more efficiently move the economic activity. When communication technologies converge with new energies and new modes of transportation logistics, it fundamentally changes the way we manage, power, and move economic life. So obvious, but not in a single textbook. And I teach in the oldest business school in the world, the Wharton School. I've been there a third of the life of that school, and I can tell you this isn't in any textbook. But this is the way the economic shifts change. Let me give you 2 examples. 19th century, first industrial revolution, Britain. The Brits take us from manual printing to steam power printing, which is a huge leap forward in the ability to manage cheap, fast, quick production of print. Then the Brits lay out a telegraph system in the last half of the 19th century to connect everybody. Those media converge with a new energy source, cheap coal from the British hinterlands. Then they invented the steam engine to harvest the coal. Then they were smart enough to put the steam engine on rails, locomotives, national rail systems, communication, energy, transport, manage power and move economic life, create dense urban areas, national markets. The rest is history. 20th century, second industrial revolution, communication, energy, transport, the United States. Centralized electricity, Edison. This made possible Alexander Graham Bell's telephone. And if we think the internet was a big deal, the telephone, instant communication at the speed of light over vast distances. The telephone later was joined by radio and television, and these communication media converged with cheap Texas oil, powered by a German invention, the internal combustion engine. And then Henry Ford put everybody on the road, cars, buses, and trucks. That second industrial revolution took us through the 20th century. It took the whole world through the 20th century. And that second industrial revolution peaked in July 2008. If you remember that month, go back for a moment, Brent crude oil hit $147 a barrel on world markets in July 2008. That was a record. And when that happened, the entire global economy shut down. Nothing moving in the ports, the rail yards, everything shut down. That was the economic earthquake. The collapse of the financial market 60 days later was the aftershock. Our policy leaders are still dwelling on the aftershock, not the earthquake. The reason this happened, this is not just the beginning of a great recession. This is the beginning of a long sunset for the second industrial revolution, based on centralized telecommunication, fossil fuel nuclear energy, internal combustion, road, rail, water, and air transport. The reason this happened is everything depends on fossil fuels, our communication, our transport, our materials, fertilizers, pesticides, construction materials, here we are, synthetic fiber, most of our pharmaceuticals, transport, power, heat, and light, all made out of and moved by fossil fuels. So when the price of oil starts to go over 95 a barrel, guess what? All the other prices start to go up. At around 115 a barrel, prices start to go so high, purchasing power starts to slow down. This is a convulsion. There's no way to get through this door. Every time we try to regrow the economy, oil prices go up, other prices go up, and then it slows down. And the only reason oil is at $50 a barrel this afternoon is now the fossil fuel industry are fighting among themselves in the last stages. So OPEC said, we're going to take the oil down to 50 a barrel. We're going to wipe out shale gas and tar sands, and they did it. They're all going bankrupt across the United States. So much for energy independence in America. By June, there won't even be anything left. And now, yesterday, in Canada, they announced they're taking off the table the Trans-Canada oil pipeline for tar sands. It's over. This happened yesterday. It's in the news today. They're taking it off the table. Let me share an anecdote with you. When Angela Merkel became Chancellor of Germany, she asked me to come to Berlin in the first couple of weeks of her new government to help her address the question of how to grow the German economy on her watch. And when I got to Berlin, the first question I asked the new Chancellor, Madam Chancellor, how do you grow the German economy or the European Union economy or the global economy when your businesses are operating on a platform based on centralized telecommunication, fossil fuel nuclear power, internal combustion transport, and we can't get any more productivity out of the platform to manage power and move our economic life? This is key, especially given the industries in here today that are going to help us on this next economic revolution. The key is to understand this, the nature of productivity. Our economists are writing these long tomes asking, why has productivity been declining for 20 years? We have all these new killer products. We have thousands of people that are creating all sorts of new technologies. Everybody wants to be Steve Jobs, and still productivity is declining. Why? We used to believe there are two factors in productivity: capital for better machines, and then better performing, better educated workers. But when Robert Solow won the Nobel Prize for economic growth theory back in 1986-87, he let a little secret out that no economist wants to share because it's a little embarrassing, to say the least. He said, when we track every single year of the Industrial Revolution, we find that better machines and better workers only accounts for 14% of the productivity. Where's the other 86%? Don't know. Are you shocked? Economists don't know? Shouldn't this be center to their ability to tell us the future of what's going on? Moses Abramowitz, the former head of the American Economic Association, said this is a measure of our ignorance. You bet. But here's why it's happened. And this is very, very important to how we structure economic plans here in Netherlands and around the world. When economic theory was penned in the late 1700s, the big vogue was Newton's physics. So every other discipline wanted to use Newton's metaphors, including the economists. So Adam Smith borrowed Newton's law. Remember, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction? He borrowed that to come up with the idea of the invisible hand of supply and demand. For every action, an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's law, body in motion stays in motion. Baptists say, borrowed that to create his idea that supply stimulates demand, which generates supply, which stimulates demand, unless disrupted by an outside force. If you look at classical, neoclassical economic theory, it's replete with these Newtonian metaphors, and there's only one problem here. Newton's physics has absolutely nothing to do with economics. Nothing. Economics is governed by the same laws that govern the universe, the galaxies, the biosphere on this earth, and every single activity we do every waking hour of the day. And those laws are the first and second laws of thermodynamics, the energy laws. But they were only discovered by chemists and engineers in the late 19th century in Europe and America when they were working on energy flows in machines and entropy costs. Here are the two laws. Crucial to all of what you're doing, and we'll see why in a bit, every industry in this room. The first law of energy that governs the universe is all energy is constant. From the time we had that little Big Bang, all the energy has been the same. No creation, no destruction, it's constant. That's the conservation law. But the second law says, well, yeah, energy is constant, but it's always changing form, but only in one direction. Big Bang, that little knot there, it goes from concentrated to dispersed across the galaxies. It goes from hot to cooled off across the galaxies. It goes from available to unavailable. Entropy is the measure of energy that's still there, but it's not available to do work. There are 3 systems in the universe that we know of. Open systems exchange matter and energy with the outside world. Closed systems only exchange energy with the outside world, but don't exchange matter. Isolated systems don't exchange matter or energy with the outside world. The Earth in relation to our solar system is B. We have plenty of sun coming in, and we send that back, hopefully not too much anymore because of global warming. But in terms of material on the planet, which is a bounded energy, the rare earths, you have like 30 little rare earths in your smartphone right now. The metallic ore, the material, that's fixed. We get a couple of meteorites down here and a little cosmic dust. That's it. We are a remnant of the sun. And everything down there that we take out of this planet is fixed. And then there's that red hot core, the remaining of the sun, right in the middle. So here's what economics actually is. Everyone here has a value chain. We're constantly extracting materials from nature that are bounded energy, metallic ore, rare earth, a fossil fuel, and we move them, we store them, we produce goods and services from them, we consume them, we recycle them. Those are value chains. So here's what I said to the Chancellor that first day. She's a physicist. I said, Madam Chancellor, the United States started the second industrial revolution, centralized communication, fossil fuel, nuclear energy, fossil fuel, there was no nuclear at that point, and internal combustion transport. We started in 1903 with 3% aggregate efficiency. Aggregate efficiency is the measure of potential to useful work in every single conversion of every activity we do, even our breathing, all right, 3%. Meaning at every step of conversion on everyone's value chain, we have to embed energy into the product or service to get it to the next stage of its transformation along the line, and we lose energy in the process. I'm going to give you an example. All of you studied biology in high school. When a predator chases a victim, a carnivore, and chases it down and then kills it and then consumes it, only about 10% of the energy in that victim gets embedded in the predator. The rest is heat loss. That's not very good aggregate efficiency. So I said to the Chancellor, we started at 3% aggregate efficiency in the United States in 1903 on the Second Industrial Revolution platform, and we got up to 13% aggregate efficiency in 1990. Nothing's changed on that platform. I don't care how many killer products out of Silicon Valley. Japan led the world and got to 20% aggregate efficiency by 1990. Nothing's changed. And what I said to the Chancellor, you can have market reforms, labor reforms, fiscal reforms, innovation summits, all get those entrepreneurs going out there and with new killer projects like Steve Jobs. Won't make a damn bit of difference if you are then plugging into a platform of centralized telecommunication, fossil fuel nuclear power, internal combustion transport, where the productivity reaches a ceiling in every country of no more than 20%. So I introduced that day to her a third industrial revolution, a new convergence of communication, energy, and transport to manage power and move economic activity in Germany. And at the end of the day, the Chancellor said, Mr. Rifkin, we will have this third industrial revolution for Germany. And I'll report back to you what's happened in the last 10 years in Germany. We all have our smartphones and our computers. Our communication internet has matured. It's been 25 years since the World Wide Web. That communication internet is now converging with a digitalized, renewable energy internet, distributed, and an automated, GPS-guided, and very, very soon, driverless transport and logistic internet, road, rail, water, maybe air, to create 3 internets to manage power and move economic life: communication, energy, transport, digital, digital, digital. Those 3 internets are one internet to manage power and move all of the value chains. Those 3 internets ride on top of a platform called the Internet of Things. We are embedding sensors in every device, every machine, every appliance, so that they can monitor real-time data and send that big data. But where are they sending it to? They're sending it to communication, energy, and transport so every business in this room can better manage power and move all their activity across their value chain. We have sensors in the agricultural fields here in the Netherlands. They're watching the soil, the crops grow and the soil salinity, water levels. We have sensors in the factories, monitoring factory production. We have sensors in the warehouses, monitoring traffic flows, logistics from the port facilities. We have sensors in smart homes. We have sensors in smart vehicles, sending big data. And by 2030, we're going to be ubiquitous connectivity. What we're doing here is we're creating an external prothesis of the central nervous system of the human race. That's what's going on here. A brain, so that we can all know what's going on in the economic, social, and life of this planet and the natural world. On the upside, this is a potential huge leap forward for humanity, because we can now, at near zero marginal cost, and that's the title of my new book. Unfortunately, it's not in Dutch, but everyone here has a better English vocabulary than half the American people, so you probably read it in English. Don't say that I said that. Actually, that's true. It's really true. It's a little embarrassing. I'm sure you had discussions with Americans, and you use English words, and they don't know the words, right? It's not because you're saying them wrong, believe me. All right. The other half, we're okay. So, where was I here? Okay. So, this is a leap forward because we can, with cheap technology and near zero marginal cost, you just need a service provider, go up on this Internet of Things platform and directly engage each other without the middlemen, without the giant vertically integrated organizations that separated us from each other at a price. That means the human race can begin to directly engage in social and commercial life on an even playing field and democratize economic and social life and start to act as one human family in all of our diversity and begin to see our biosphere as our community and our fellow creatures as part of the family. However, as exciting as that prospect is, the democratization of life, immediately we're excited and we're a little bit frightened, to say the least. Everything connected to everything else? What about network neutrality? How do we ensure governments and companies don't monopolize this Internet of Things platform for political purposes or for monopolistic purposes in the market? That struggle's already started. How do we guarantee the privacy of everyone in this room so you can send your data when you want, encrypt it when you want, or keep it to yourself? How do we ensure data security? How do we prevent cybercrime and cyber terrorism? How do we build resiliency into this distributed system so it doesn't break down with catastrophic consequences for us? These are the heady political issues, the dark side, that will keep us engaged, you, your children and grandchildren, for much of the next half century. This is the political struggle of the 21st century. But let's assume for this afternoon we can address these issues, and I spend much time in the Zero Marginal Cost Society in the book. I spend a lot of time on these issues. And I go to bed thinking about these at night, because if we don't spend as much time, money, and effort on the dark side, we will not get to the promise here. This isn't an externality. This is as important as the benefits. But let's assume we can deal with the dark side. Everyone here is a value chain. You're moving economic activity from nature in one way or the other. You're storing it, you're shipping it, you're producing, you're consuming, you're recycling. If you have a small and medium-sized enterprise here, or a big company, or a neighborhood association, you can go up on this emerging Internet of Things platform. It's already started. And you have a transparent picture of all the economic life going on. Even big companies didn't have this data. This evens the playing field. When I first was at Wharton as a student in 1963, my professor said, "Mr. Rifkin, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware." The sellers don't want the buyers to know what the sellers know. Now everybody knows the data. This democratizes economic life. So let's say you have an SME. You go up on this emerging Internet of Things platform, which has already started to gel, just beginning, and you can cut your big data out of all the other big data from the value chain. Just cut it out, the rest is noise. Take the data you care about, think about your company, all of the data you need on your value chain, cut it out. Then you can apply your own analytics to mine the data. And with those analytics, you mine the data, and then you create your own algorithms and apps. So you can dramatically increase your aggregate efficiency at every step of conversion on your value chain and update it with the software And why do you want to do this? We now know 30 years after Robert Solow that the third factor in productivity is aggregate efficiency. It's about 85% of productivity. Every engineer, chemist, biologist, and architect in this room could have told you that. Aggregate efficiency, the ratio of potentially useful work. So all of us can go up on there, very cheap, mine the big data on our value chain, create the algorithms and apps, dramatically increase the aggregate efficiency, reduce the marginal cost, and be extremely competitive in a very low marginal cost, streamlined, smart global economy. Some of the marginal costs are now heading to zero. Zero marginal cost society, the book. And what this is doing is it's giving rise to a new, something brand new called the sharing economy, which we're hearing a lot about. But what is it? Capitalism has given birth to a progeny. None of us saw it. This little sharing economy is this fledgling, kind of embryonic, unformed little beast, and it's flourishing alongside its capitalist parent, and it's looking for some nurturing. So capitalism, the parent's trying to figure out how to relate to this child. It has to let it grow and mature and nurture it, and it has to find its own identity. But in any parent-child relationship, the child is transforming the parent already. Capitalism is going to be fundamentally altered by having to relate to and be attached to this child as it grows up and becomes an equal player on the stage. So it's a very uncomfortable parent-child relationship. Part of the time, capitalism wants to absorb the child, you know, and part of the time, the child is resisting, I want to be my own idea. And what we're seeing is a hybrid economic system emerge. We used to believe there are only sellers and buyers and owners and workers. But in a zero marginal cost society, there's another group called prosumers. These are 3 billion people on the internet, now the Internet of Things, who at any given time of the day, they're in the marketplace, they're producing goods and services for each other for a margin and profit, and they're exchanging property. But part of the day, every one of the people on the internet have done this. They're prosumers. They're producing something at near zero marginal cost. They're sharing it with everyone else beyond the market. It's not even part of the GDP. We now have seen the impact of what digitalization has done in communication to get us to zero marginal cost, and this will give us a bellwether of what's going to happen in energy and transport. We have millions of people this afternoon as we sit here, and you know what they're doing? They're producing their own music with the cheapest digital technology you can imagine, and it's studio quality. Digital technology is getting so cheap, they're giving it away. You buy the service. And then whether you put together some music, and whether you share that music with one person or a billion people on the web, it's the same cost. It's near zero marginal cost. You just need to be plugged in and have a service provider. We have millions of young people who are producing and sharing their own YouTube videos, all open source, no intellectual property, and they're doing it near zero marginal cost. And the digital technology for video, studio quality, what do you buy? A little video or your little cell phone, and you can do it. State of the art, it's digital. We have millions of young people producing and sharing their own news blogs, their own social media, their own free ebooks. My newest book was out on the pirate systems before we published, and they were ranking it before Amazon. You can't beat this. It's a democratization of the technology. We tend to give away a lot of the books anyway, but they gave it all away. All right? Okay. We now have 6 million students taking massive open online college courses taught by the best professors here in Europe and America and around the world. It costs about $10,000 max to create the course. You can send it to 1 or a billion people, same cost, zero marginal cost. These kids are getting college credits, and it's free. Whole industries have been disrupted because of this Internet of Things platform. The music industry has gone down. It's been 16 years since Napster, the file-sharing music service. Look at what's happened. Music industry, down. Television, declining. The kids are producing for each other and sharing it on YouTube. Newspapers and magazines, my friends here, the journalists, you know what's happened. Believe me, I understand. I'm in publishing for 40 years with books, and we're having the same problem, trying to figure out how to create new value here. It's not going to go back. There's no way to stop it unless we outlaw all the technology, and there's not a country in the world that's going to be able to do that. But at the same time, this democratization of news, entertainment, and knowledge has created thousands of new enterprises, profit and nonprofit. For every Google, there's a Wikipedia. For every Airbnb, there's a Couchsurfing. It's profit and nonprofit and blurred. And these thousands of enterprises are creating the apps, the connections, and the platforms for a sharing economy where we can produce and share as prosumers at near zero marginal cost. Some of it's attached to the capitalist market, like Uber. Some of it isn't, like BlaBlaCar, which is sort of in between. We thought there'd be a firewall here, and while the zero marginal cost would impact the virtual world of bits, it wouldn't cross to the physical world of atoms. What I'm saying in the Zero Marginal Cost Society book, that Internet of Things platform and riding on top communication, energy, and transport, it breaks right through the firewall. It's already done. We now have millions of people producing their own, as you know, solar and wind electricity now at near zero marginal cost. And now we have a younger generation moving to car sharing, and pretty soon it's going to be driverless at near zero marginal cost, not to even include the drones. Let's go back to Germany. What's happened in the 10 years since the first meeting with the Chancellor? We're at 30% solar and wind right now. 30% of all the power in Germany on that electricity grid is solar and wind at near zero marginal cost. The fixed cost of these technologies, as you know, solar and wind are on a 20-year exponential curve, just like computer chips. When I was a kid in the 1940s, computers, there are only a couple of them. They cost millions of dollars, and the chairman of IBM said, well, maybe we'll need 7 computers. That's the way we figure it, 7. We didn't anticipate the Intel chip. Double the capacity, half the cost on that computer chip, and now I'm working with the Chinese leadership, and Wang Yang, the vice premier, one of my visits with him, he said, well, Jeremy, we got some news for you. We got a $25 smartphone now with more power than sent your boys to the moon. Everyone's going to be connected. I don't care if you're making $2 a day or not. Everyone will be connected in the next decade. Everyone. So here's where we are in Germany. We're heading to 40% renewable energy. Oh, let me just say, for some of you older folks, you remember how much a solar watt used to cost to produce? $78 for 1 watt in 1970s. $78. It's 50 cents for that watt today. It's 38 cents, 35 cents in 18 months from now. Do you see what's happening? We have power and utility companies in my global consortium, my group, who are quietly buying long-term contracts for 20 years for solar and wind, 4 cents a kilowatt hour, right now in America and Europe. It's over. But now we have stranded assets in the old industries, and we have to figure out how to bring those energy industries with us into this new program over a period of time. And I'll talk about the new business models. A lot of companies have joined us. GDF Suez now, ERDF, EDF, E.ON. I'm going to be with Total in a few weeks. They're just starting to see the new possibilities. So who's producing? So once you put in the solar panel and the wind turbine, a lot of you do the installations and the geothermal heat pump, the marginal cost of that energy in Germany, it's zero, near zero, never zero. The sun has not sent us a bill yet in Germany for the sun. The wind hasn't invoiced us. The geothermal heat has not sent us a bill. It's free. So once we get through the hump and put in storage to store these intermittent energies, put in the advanced meters, digitalize the grid, imagine businesses plugging into a platform in Germany of communication that's at near zero marginal cost, managing big data and energy at near zero marginal cost, and every business plugs into that, and on their value chain at near zero marginal cost for managing and their activities and powering them, their aggregate efficiency goes through the roof in their productivity. If you're in a second industrial revolution platform, how are you going to compete with that? Germany's got it. Little Denmark's got it, and there's only, what, less than 3 million people there. The Netherlands is right there. France is starting to move. But you got to move from the sentences to the story and put it all together. That's what's missing. So who's producing this energy? We've got 4 major power companies in Germany, EnBW, RWE, E.ON, and Vattenfall. And what's happened to them in the last 10 years is what happened to the music industry, newspapers, magazines, book publishing, television. Millions of small players came together, and they created electricity cooperatives, farmers, urbanites, SMEs. They created electricity cooperatives. Those are shared commons. Every one of them got low-interest loans from the banks. The banks were happy to do it because they pay back on the premium energy they're sending back to the grid. There's no way to default on those loans. Everyone got the loans. They're producing the new electricity. The big four power companies are producing less than 7%, and they're now acknowledging they can't play the game. The reason is they were the best organized for centralized energies. They required massive capital and vertical integration for economies of scale. Whether you were a capitalist or socialist country, you had to create vertically integrated organization for these centralized energies. There was no other way to do it. But the problem here is the new platform, internet, communication internet, energy internet, transport internet, its architecture is not centralized, it's distributed. It only works if it's open and transparent so you can collaborate at no cost. It's not top-down. And it requires lateral scaling of millions of small players because then you create much more potential. You can't vertically integrate it. Try to imagine a power company trying to capture the sun everywhere and the wind and the geothermal heat. You got to capture it in your buildings, in your infrastructure. Those are the nodes. We're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to the real estate and construction industry and the installation industries in this room and the role you're going to play on this build-out. All right? Give me a few minutes. If I forget it, remind me at the end. So does this mean the end of the power and transmission companies? No, they got to change their business model. They're going to be in the second industrial revolution for quite a while, but the exponential curves are taking us to a third industrial revolution, so you have to be in both models. You have petrochemical industry here in the Netherlands. You got to be in both models. Here's the new model. About 5 or 6 years ago, E.ON said, would you debate Mr. Tyson, our chairman, but in a neutral country, the Netherlands, not Germany. We had a debate for 3 hours. Was anyone there by any chance for that debate? So I introduced a new business model, and he said, this is not going to happen at E.ON. He did it last spring. And what we said is, not tomorrow morning, but you're in the second industrial revolution, vertically integrated. You're going to move into the third industrial revolution, distributed. The new revolution, part of your portfolio is understanding you make more money by selling less and less electricity. He said, how do we do that? You set up relationships with thousands of enterprises across your value chain, and you help manage the big data on their energy, on the energy internet. You help manage their big data, help them with their analytics and algorithms and apps so they can dramatically increase their aggregate efficiency across their value chain, and their productivity will go up, their marginal costs will go down. They'll share their productivity gains back with the power company. It's called performance contracts. We're now doing it. So E.ON now is moving. They've sold off their fossil fuel and nuclear divisions this year. They're moving to energy management. GDF Suez is not leaving oil, but they're now moving into this energy management. So ERDF, EDF, and RWE have joined us in northern industrial France, where we're laying out this third industrial revolution in Nord-Pas-de-Calais, from Lille to Dunkirk. It's good business. So if I were here and there was any energy company here, power company, I'd say, you're not going to do this? You're going to be left behind, because there's all sorts of others who like to do it. Schneider's in my group. They'd like to connect the whole energy internet and manage your data. So would IBM and Cisco and Samsung across all sorts of industries. So this is the future. It's not tomorrow, but you have to have two business portfolios. This isn't just Europe. When Premier Li became Premier of China, I had not done any business in China, and this was a huge shock to me. When he came into office, President Xi, Premier Li, he put out his biography, Premier Li, and he said he had read my last book, The Third Industrial Revolution. I never gave him a copy. I was totally shocked. I thought it was a joke at first. And then he instructed the Development Reform Commission, the State Council, to start moving on these ideas, because China missed out on the first industrial revolution, got into the tail end of the second, didn't want to miss the third. I've been there on many formal visits. I just came back last week. I've been there for 3 years to show you how fast they move. After my first visit, 11 weeks later, this is a couple of years ago, the chairman of the state electricity grid, which is the big electricity grid, 11 weeks after the first visit, announced a $82 billion four-year startup to digitalize the entire electricity grid of the state grid across China, so that millions of Chinese people could produce their own solar and wind and send it back to the grid starting this year. How do you like that? 82 billion. And President Xi went to the United Nations 3 weeks ago and called for a global energy internet. How many saw that? Global energy internet. Europe and China. We'll get back to that. The coming together of the communication and energy internet makes possible the automated GPS, driverless transport, logistics internet, road, rail, water, maybe air, certainly with drones. The automobiles made the second industrial revolution. Purchasing automobiles really laid out the whole second industrial revolution, but the problem is the millennials in this room, we got any millennials? Who's here is a millennial? Thank God there's a few of you back. Where are you, under 31? Raise your hands. Sparse. Well, apparently you're screwing up the works. Because apparently you don't want to own automobiles. That's grandma and grandpa, 2 cars sitting in the driveway doing nothing except being washed every week. You want access to mobility and car sharing networks in real time. You don't want the inconvenience of owning the vehicle. Car sharing is taking off. Access to mobility, not ownership of the vehicle. Beginning with the millennials and then your children and grandchildren, they're never going to own cars again. That curve is exponential. And when I first laid this out in the book, the transport companies went, and then they realized, absolutely, this is just, we know this is going to happen now. For every car shared, 15 cars are eliminated for production. Some of you know Larry Burns. He was the former executive vice president of General Motors till 5 years ago. Well, Larry has just done a study. He's a university professor in Michigan, University of Michigan. He looked at Ann Arbor, Michigan. Right now, the GPS car sharing networks it's still incipient, but he said right now we can eliminate 80% of the vehicles in Ann Arbor. We're there. The other vehicles, cheaper mobility. Extrapolate his study, we have 1 billion cars, buses, and trucks choking us in traffic around the world, and they are the #3 cause of global warming emissions. #1 is buildings, but in Germany we've already retrofitted and converted 1 million buildings into micropower plants to send energy back to that grid. The #2 cause of climate change, I always have to mention it because no one seems to want to talk about it. What's the #2 cause of global warming emissions by our industrial society? #1 is buildings, #3 is transport. Huh? Beef production, yep, beef production, beef consumption, and animal husbandry. I wrote a book called Beyond Beef in 1990, and the beef industry in the United States, the security threats were unbelievable. They said, you are out of your mind. But it's not just the methane, it's the nitrous oxide. They're much more powerful than CO2 and the CO2. And even Al Gore won't talk about it. He doesn't, nobody wants to offend our dietary habits. I go to France and mention, and they go like this. The Netherlands is big beef eaters. If we're not willing to move down the food chain to ensure our survival on this planet, I don't know what to say. But #3 is transport. If Larry Burns' study is right, we're going to eliminate 80% of the vehicles in the next generation. Cars, buses, trucks. The other 200 million vehicles will be electric. They'll be fuel celled. They'll be operating on near zero marginal cost energy from energy internets. They will be made out of 3D printed composite recycled materials, and the Stratus is already out there in commercial production by local motors. And they're going to be driverless on automated systems at near zero marginal cost labor. This is not in the future. The state of Nevada just gave Daimler Trucks permission to operate their trucks in Nevada this year. Nobody at the wheel, just in the passenger side, commercially. So imagine the reduction in marginal costs: electric, fuel cell, powered by renewable energy, 3D printed with recycled materials, no drivers, automated systems. It's a revolution. Does this mean the end of the auto and transportation industry? No, but they have to change their business model. They're still selling millions of cars, and they will be in trucks, but this exponential curve's here, starting with the millennials. So what's the new business model? You still keep that second industrial revolution model. You try to sell individual cars. Okay, that's going to wane, but you're still there. But then you create a new business model. You help erect and manage the automated GPS, driverless transport and logistics, road, rail, water systems. And if you don't, the Alibabas will do it, the Amazons will do it, the IBMs will do it, the Schneiders will do it, the Samsungs will do it. Everybody wants to do it. Have to be working collaborative across industries to help erect this system. And there's going to be lots of startups, thousands of startups that are going to manage parts of this in the SME community regionally. Not either or, but how do you get to A to B? And I'll remind you that this has happened before. The first industrial revolution was raging in the late 1890s. And I'll give you an anecdote. Siemens had me come in there, Peter Loescher, before he left, with his board of directors to say, how do we make it to the third industrial revolution from the second? I said, you don't need me. Look at your history. You sold boilers. You were a second industrial revolution company. In the 1890s, the first industrial revolution company. In the 1890s, the second industrial revolution came in. For 50 years, you were in both portfolios. By 1950, the first industrial revolution was all but over, but you had that 50-year transition and you were still in business. That's smart business. Now make the shift from the second to the third. So how do we pay for this? And how do we create a quick mobilization? Let's deal with the mobilization first. Last year, the Prime Minister of Italy, Prime Minister Renzi, asked if I would join him in Venice, along with Nellie Kroes, who you know, who's she's my big hero, the best commissioner. I tell you, boy, she as a competition commissioner, I tell you, she was great. And then the digital commissioner. So he asked Nellie and I to join him in Venice to declare a new journey for Europe, Digital Europe. But it was kind of unclear as what that is. Big data, what is Digital Europe? So I laid out the plan we're talking about now, and then put together a memorandum for President Jean-Claude Juncker. And I believe this memorandum has been handed out to everybody here. Is that correct? Do you all have that? Was this given to you? Anybody can tell me this? It's an 18-page memo. Was that handed out? All right. You've got what he got. So he wrote me back, and he said, I read every sentence really slow. I got it. This is where we want to head. Then I met with many of his vice presidents. We met with Martin Schulz of the Parliament, talked to about it with Sigmar Gabriel's team. This is the next stage of the EU journey, Digital Europe. Europe always needs a new plan to go forward to bring everyone together, or else it falls backward. And now with the refugee crisis, the European dream is now, again, again, it's wavering. We need this new journey. And what is the journey? To lay out this third industrial revolution platform across every region in Europe, connect it like Wi-Fi, and then push it into the partnership regions with their help. That's a billion-person market, 500 million in the Union, 500 million in the partnership regions, and we create a seamless, integrated platform for communication, energy, and transport to manage, power, and move everybody's value chain, high aggregate efficiency and productivity, low marginal cost, streamlined smart Europe, and some of the marginal cost is zero, sharing economy grows. How do we finance it? The money's all there. The question is priorities. We spent 741 billion US equivalent dollars in the EU in 2012 on infrastructure. And that's a bad recession year. That's just 1 year. That's a lousy recession year. That's how much public and private investment we put into infrastructure. The problem is we're spending new old. Everywhere in the world they're spending new old. We're pouring this money into a second industrial revolution platform, centralized telecommunication, fossil fuel, nuclear power, internal combustion transport, and the productivity peaked at around 13 to 20% aggregate efficiency in every industrial country. Nothing more we can get out of it. So I said we need to reprioritize, put some of it in the third industrial revolution, and then let each region move this forward. Because it has to move region to region. Each region has to customize and then connect like Wi-Fi. Well, this has now happened. This is important for your industry. We did about 4 or 5 of these regional plans in Europe, including one in Utrecht, over the years. We came up against a stumbling block at the EIB, the European Investment Bank, because they'd get a roadmap together and then go to the EIB, and the EIB say, well, we don't do that. We don't finance this revolution. This is not what our protocols are. That's now been changed. This is really important for the industries here. This has been changed. What I said is we need to reprioritize so the investments go to the region so they can build this out. And we had a meeting in Berlin in the first few weeks of March, hosted by President Hoyer of the bank, Chancellor Merkel, Jean-Claude Juncker, the President of the Commission. And then I laid this narrative out because guess what? The EIB has just changed its priorities. If you want funds for the region, build out your map. The priorities are digital communication, big data, digitalize the renewable energy and internet across Europe, digitalize automated transport logistics grid, digitalize education to go with it, and then healthcare is on the side. This rollout will involve virtually every industry. I've heard some folks say, well, gee, what Mr. Rifkin's saying, doesn't this mean the jobs are going to disappear? Well, some jobs will always disappear. That's the disruptions of new technology, but we're talking about creating massive jobs here. Why? We have to build this out. This takes 40 years. This involves virtually every industry in the Netherlands and around the world. ICT, telecom, cable, consumer electronics, transport, logistics, manufacturing. They all have to be there for this infrastructure build out. Let's just take a look at where it starts. It starts with the buildings, and here we are. Now we finally got to you. Was it worth the wait? I hope so. You've got to have framework, and the reason I lay this out is what's happened up to now is not, the technology's been here, and why haven't we scaled it? Because we don't have the story, only the sentences. So you're there in Never Never Land trying to install these technologies as if they were just isolated pilot projects, and you can't scale. Because the individual projects are not the story. The story is bringing all those sentences together. President Obama, who I voted for him twice, I deeply admire him, but he spent billions of dollars of US stimulus money to create a green economy, and we don't have a green economy, and we don't have that many jobs. Why? He spent it, in America we have the idea that you just have to have a killer product and an entrepreneur that's like Steve Jobs, and let's create 1 million Steve Jobs with killer products. This is not the way it goes, and there's innovation summits happening all over the world. You're going to have one here in the Netherlands in the next couple of weeks. But that's a libertarian idea that doesn't pay attention to how the great paradigm shifts occur. You can have all these killer new product lines, but if you're plugging them into that second industrial revolution platform, communication, energy transfer, you get nothing out of them. Look at 3D printing. It's great. Precision 3D printing. Additive materials, so you're using 1/10 of the materials in the product, okay? You can use recycled materials, plastic, paper, metal, low, zero marginal cost. But if you're plugging it into the old system, you still have to use the communication, energy, and transport. But what if you were in the third industrial revolution platform? Then you can power your 3D printer with your own renewable energy off or on grid. That's starting to happen. Then you can use your electric vehicle powered by your renewable energy to send it to market. It goes on and on. You've got to plug into the new platform. You have to be a social market economy because you have to understand the government, industry, and civil society has to do it together. These are public goods. They require the country to do it together, and that's why the EU is better positioned, because you are a social market economy. California, Washington, Oregon are there, but the rest of the country doesn't want to spend any money on infrastructure in my country. They just think, killer entrepreneurs, let them go. The entrepreneurs did not create the interstate highway system and underwrite the electricity grid and the pipelines and the public school systems and the sewer systems, all of which were necessary for that second industrial revolution. Those are public goods. We lost sight of that in the US. The libertarian philosophy has really hurt us. That's why you may have the edge. So, we have to take every building in the Netherlands and we have to transform its purpose. They're not just habitats, they're not workspaces only, they are nodes. These are the crucial nodes that connect to create the Internet of Things platform for a third industrial revolution digital Europe. We have to take every building in this country, home, office, factory, and they have to be retrofitted. Full retrofits, insulation, windows, everything, so we can get 66% efficiency out of those buildings. You cannot turn them into big data centers, micro power plants, and automated transport hubs if the buildings are leaking. This is hugely labor intensive. And the way you're going to finance it is by certifying thousands and thousands of ESCOs through your real estate construction companies or your installation companies. Those ESCOs can take, and then you're going to get tax advantages from the region, keep with me, or the government here, tax advantages for the ESCOs, so that they can get loans from the banks, low interest. They can go in and scale up whole areas of social housing, commercial, etc., retrofit them, and they're paid back by the energy savings, their performance contracts. The government doesn't have to finance any of it, just give the tax advantages. And there's no reason the banks wouldn't provide the loans because you can audit and know exactly how much efficiency you get when you do this. There is absolutely no reason this can't be done. And it is being done in Noord-Pas-de-Calais. We started this year, this will whet your appetite. We're in a third year of deployment on our master plan there. And this is a region that lost out on the second industrial revolution. It was an industrial mining region. We've now geared up with training for ESCOs. We now have 12,500 buildings the first year alone that are going to be retrofitted, and then we're exponentially moving it up. And we just got our 200 high schools together in the region. We're going to turn them into, we're going to retrofit them, turn them into big data centers, micro power plants, and electric charging hubs for GPS. We just got an 850 million euro credit from the EU, leverage against private funds. We're going to transform all 200 high schools within the next 6 years. This is only one of 175 projects being deployed after only 30 months there. The whole region's doing this. 3,000 businesses have gone through seminars. All of them are organizing across industry lines. This can be done everywhere. How many jobs do you create? Unbelievable amount of jobs. This is so labor intensive. Semi-skilled, skilled, professional, retrofit. Then the ESCOs go to the next stage and install the solar, the wind, the electricity connections, the geothermal pumps. That's what you're all doing in this room, right? You use ESCOs. You try to scale up neighborhoods. You try to scale up commercial districts because you have a plan across the region. And you pay back by performance contracting, and then all the owners of that real estate get a free ride. Then they've got buildings that are efficient, cheaper, they're not paying the energy costs, and they're power plants. China's really building it up. I just developed a plan that we introduced to the Real Estate Association in China. They're going to move thousands and thousands of ESCOs because they got a real estate bubble now. They got to transform these buildings. This is going to be massive in China in the next 5-year plan starting next year. We got to do it across Europe. Then we have to change the electricity grid. Then we have to, when we install all those technologies you're installing now, you're in the installations. Those are pretty labor intensive, aren't they? Installing the solar and the wind and the geothermal. That's real work. Do you think robots can do that? Does anyone think robots are going to do that? Please tell your fellow people here, robots aren't going to do that. Workers here are going to do this in the Netherlands, from skilled to professional skills. Then we got to take the entire electricity grid, transform it from dumb to smart, from servo-mechanical to digitalized. Who's going to lay down the underground cable? Who's going to put the who's going to manufacture and then install advanced meters so that everyone can manage their data on that energy internet in every damn building? Workers of all sorts, from semi-skilled to professional. We have to take the entire transportation grid of Netherlands, and we have to transform it from dumb to smart road, rail, water, and air, and from internal combustion to electric and fuel cell. Who's going to put the sensors around the system? Who's going to manufacture and install literally millions of charging stations? Every parking space and every building has to have a charging station and a fuel cell outlet and a GPS transport hub. It's a huge build-out. In the end, over 40 years, we're going to build in a smart, automated system for the capitalist market that runs by analytics and small workforces. That's 40 years. We have 2 generations of one last surge of mass wage labor, but by that time, in our school systems, we're going to prepare young people for other employment. They're not going to just get a guaranteed income to sit and do nothing because the machines are doing it. That's absurd, all these new books. They're going to move the employment to the social economy. It's already the fastest growing employer. This is where we create social capital. You need humans with humans. Robots are not going to be in the child care centers teaching little children how to be human beings, or in the assisted living centers, or dealing with the environment, or with education and health care, all these other things. There's no machines that are going to do that. That's a pretty weird world. And you get paid in the social economy. It's called fees for services. In 42 countries surveyed, it's the fastest growing employment sector, but we still have one last blast for 2 generations of mass industrial employment here. Last thoughts on this. The real reason that this is an economic plan, I don't think there's a plan B. If there is, please tell me what it is. Staying where we are. And the reason that we don't have a plan B is this is the only way I know we can address climate change if we have any chance of dealing with it in time. And we may be too late. We got to act as if we aren't. We've got about 3 decades, and we maybe can move this in exponentially. I'm not sure. I'm not a technological optimist. I'm not a determinist. And I don't think technology does it by itself. It has to be a change in will and consciousness and a dedication so fierce we've never seen this before in the human race. 3 generations, and we can't be making any mistakes. And we got to have some luck. Zero marginal cost is the ultimate metric for reducing ecological footprint. And that is, if 7 billion people, even when you're little kids, are armed with little smartphones and always they're trying to use their apps to find new ways to increase their aggregate efficiency and productivity and reduce their marginal cost, that means all day long they're figuring out how to use less of the earth by getting more out of it. That's aggregate efficiency. They use less and get more out of it. Then if what they do produce is shared, share the vehicles, share the homes, share the toys with the children, share all of it. In the sharing economy, we're in a circular economy. We're redistributing things over and over. Nothing goes to the landfill. In the energy internet, I'm confident that if we don't have really bad luck and a lot of poor leadership, everyone in the world should be producing their own green electricity in 25 years from now. Everyone, in every region, in every neighborhood with very cheap technology. Geothermal, small hydro, solar, wind, etc. If we put in the automated transport internet, we're going to eliminate 80% of the materials we use on the planet. And then those vehicles we have are going to be at very, very low ecological footprint. They're going to be running on renewable energy. That's it in a nutshell. And I'll end with this. I'm not optimistic or pessimistic. What I've outlined, my wife used to say, this is just common sense from a business perspective. We know this can be scaled, and everybody in this room is in the industries. Does anyone think we can't do this? Everything I've said today is being done. It's just about scaling. But it isn't going to happen without a change in consciousness. And here's where I'm sort of guardedly hopeful, but I don't want to overstretch this. We have young people coming who are beginning to create a whole new frame of reference in how they think. They're beginning to move to what we call biosphere consciousness. I grew up in a geopolitical world post-Westphalia, the nation-state world, and in that world, every individual is a sovereign, autonomous agent pursuing their own self-interest, the Anglo-American idea, and every government is a sovereign pursuing the self-interest of all the little sovereigns that make up their citizenry and competing with other governments for scarce resources in the market or in the battlefield in a zero-sum game. Do I have this right? That is geopolitics. Young people are coming home with a different idea. They're Skyping in global classrooms. 1 billion of them are on Facebook. This is a huge fictional family. They're in each other's face every day. They've broken down all the boundaries and borders. They're very cosmopolitan. And they're beginning to see the biosphere as their indivisible community. And that's that 20 kilometers from the stratosphere to the oceans where life and chemicals interact to maintain this experiment that's so strange called life. So the kids are coming home. Test this out. High school kids are coming home. They're saying to their parents, why is dad using so much water while he's shaving? They're becoming little police officers, these kids. Why is the little red light on the Philips TV? We're not even in that room using that electricity, wasting it. Why do we have 2 cars? Car share one, give the other one up. We're wasting it. And the one I'm particularly fond of, kids are coming home, and this is happening all over the world where I'm traveling. They're asking, where'd the piece of beef come from on the plate? Don't want it. They're asking their parents, you know, this may have come from a rainforest where they had to destroy the trees for little 4 inches of topsoil to graze a cow. And when they destroy those trees, the kids understand that there's rare animal and plant life that only live in that tree canopy in that region, extinct. And the kids understand if they destroy the tree to graze the cow for the piece of beef on the table, it means those trees aren't absorbing CO2 from industrial emissions. So the temperature of the planet's going up. And that means some farmer can't feed her kids because she's getting floods and droughts every year. They're learning ecological footprint. This is so new. They're actually picking this up all over the world, that everything they do intimately affects some other human or some other creature or some other ecosystem, right? How many of you have had this experience? The kids are seeing the interconnectivity, that the well-being of each of us depends on the well-being, literally, of every other human, every other creature, and all the ecosystems. It's a symbiotic, very complex choreography that maintains this planet. No one can be an autonomous, isolated agent. It doesn't work that way on this earth. I'm guardedly hopeful. What I would say here is the Netherlands, we're going to be with you here from Rotterdam to The Hague. And it's a joint collaboration. All of these master plans are joint collaborations. We don't do the report. The regions do the work. We bring our people to join with your experts, And over a period of a year, the region mobilizes itself. The region comes up with proposals. The region says, this is the future we want. And the regions figure out how to do this. But now we've got Noord-Pas-de-Calais, Rotterdam to The Hague. Luxembourg has just joined in for the whole government of Luxembourg. And we're in conversations with 3 other regions and 3 other countries. And together they make up the 6 countries that created the coal and steel community that started the EU. Huh? And it was all around energy. Tired of millions of people dying for coal in the Ruhr Valley, 2 wars. These 6 countries did this. And now we want to see the regions in all these 6 countries join together across borders, help each other out, and then move their countries to get rid of all the codes, the regulations, standards that are blocking us, and move this forward so the regions can have that subsidiarity principle in practice, move this across the EU quickly. So what we're doing is so important that we can't afford to fail. This has to be taken really seriously. We have been inviting delegations to Noord-Pas-de-Calais. We say to them, just go and see what's happening. Some folks have said, is it worth paying a little money to do this? And I say, go to Noord-Pas-de-Calais. See an entire region mobilize. Because it talks cheap. You got to go and see it. You got to see people excited, thousands of people organizing in that region. And on December 3rd, President Hollande, we've got a private train. 500 people are being invited from the Paris climate talks, all the delegates and media, to come to Noord-Calais. And we have a huge outdoor tent over a block. This is the oldest coal mining region. You're going to see an entire region and all the projects they're doing in real time. Just folks, SMEs, school kids, everybody, not just a few people. The Netherlands can do this because you have the most advanced NGO and civil society really in the world. Our nonprofits in the US used to look to the Netherlands for how you organize NGOs in the 1960s and 70s. You also have a deep entrepreneurial spirit. It absolutely matches the entrepreneurial spirit and risk-taking in my country. I've seen it over the years. And you have world class in all these industries. All you need to do now is come together yourselves. We can be there and sort of help, facilitate. You got to just come together and do this across Netherlands. And the legacy you'll leave is maybe we have a chance to replenish this earth and drop the ecological footprint, put people back to work, create new business opportunities. The millennial generation's ready to go. You're overqualified. You know everything I'm saying. You can do this tomorrow morning. Let's open the door, get some fresh air so that you can try to move your talents into the marketplace and the sharing economy and get this done tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rifkin, for the thoughts, insights, and your knowledge. We have some little room for questions out of the audience. I have some simple game rules for that. On my paper it said we had 4 sections, but we have 3 now. In every section there is a host with a microphone, a handheld microphone. If you have a question and it's your turn, please wait for the microphone, because it's for us on the stage, we have to understand and hear what you say, but also for the audience and for the video. So who has the first turn? The first question. Okay. Nick. Please stand up, mention your name and organization, please, so we know who we're talking about. Because I know you, but the rest.
Well, I am Nick from Breda. I'm doing a study in Avans University in the Netherlands, and we are focusing on creating a dashboard for municipalities to see the smart integration. And therefore we do a research about what municipality is the farthest in the maturity, so that other municipalities have an example and to ask for advice in a different municipality instead of hiring new experts in their own. What is your opinion on that, or what is like a municipality that we can look at?
For municipalities,
Yeah.
I think that it's very important that we not just see this as smart cities. The municipalities are kind of the dense hub of this, but you also want to involve the surrounding regions as much as you can. The regions get the money from EIB. Follow me? They get the money. And the other reason, it's not just about following the money. My sense is that every region has to be a steward of their part of the biosphere, that 20 kilometers. We'll never have a global authority to manage this planet. It ain't going to happen. This third industrial revolution, because it's distributed, collaborative, laterally scaled, digitalized, every region can take care of its swath of the biosphere. And that means that you have to have urban and open space. You have to start to bring back your native diversity in whatever wild space you have left. You have to begin to see that as essential for sufficiency for food and water, but also to steward your part of the biosphere so that biodiversity is there for you and the rest of the planet. That's absolutely essential. So I think smart cities are key. You want to have a nice metropolitan region that can give you some scale here, that's sure. But if you just see it as smart cities, what do you do with all the rural areas? They're essential. Those are places where you can put more renewables on, the wind farms and the geothermal, but they're also the places where you've got to really enhance your native biodiversity. Now, one of the reasons the Netherlands is so interesting to me is you are the most densely populated country in the world per square foot, but in parts of this country you don't feel that way because you zoned it so you have concentrations of urban areas and then you have rural space around as best you could. This is the way we need to do it. So I would basically say it's absolutely essential, especially with, you have world-class agriculture here. I mean, this is world-class agriculture. This is what people look to the Netherlands. We want to move toward ecological, sustainable agriculture, as the Netherlands is doing. We want to show how you can do intensive agriculture and still make it work. And so you need to have the metropolitan areas and the surrounding smaller rural regions together on this. You need them both. Smart regions.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Over there.
Hi, my name is Sanne Carrière, Aqua Assistance, water treatment company. Thank you for waking us all up with this talk. You were talking about that this third revolution is too big to fail, but we also need the capacity to fail to move forward. So how do you see this tendency? We cannot fail, but we need to be able to fail to get ahead.
You need to be able to sell, is that what you're saying?
No, to fail, to make...
Oh, scale.
No, fail,
Well,
to make
is,
mistakes.
To experiment. Huh? To experiment. It's an experiment.
Yeah, well, here's the big problem we're facing. Let's take Nord-Pas-de-Calais again. So we want to move the retrofitting much quicker because we're going to get those funds. And then we're stopped because the French government has the most archaic retrofitting policies. It takes 3 years to audit, get the permit. People don't want to go through it. You can't scale it. We got to break through all that. So one of the things we're recommending is that the host countries take whatever regions want to experiment and allow them to experiment with, so that they can be free to move this quickly. Then we see how the codes can change. In other words, give them some freedom, like free development zones, so they can move around those regulations and experiment. It's absolutely key. And we put a proposal in during the Dutch presidency, so if anybody's here, bear this in mind. I hope you don't lose the opportunity during the Dutch presidency. We have a proposal up there saying that, you know, every country now has a digital champion. And the consul just said to the 28 states, would you like to voluntarily have someone who's a digital champion? Everyone said fine, no legislation, no bickering. The proposal we have up in the Dutch presidency, I'm going to share with everybody here, not just a few folks in the Dutch presidency, because we haven't been able to meet with them. We've met with a few folks, they're too busy. They can't be too busy for this. Because what we said is, those 28 member states during the Dutch presidency, the Dutch government should put together a proposal that says, you voluntarily, just like you set up a digital champion, you say that you will make it available that in one or more regions, however many regions you want, voluntarily can begin to experiment and lay out this platform and begin to then work with all these other regions that are already in place and share your information and knowledge, because together you'll then understand what the nation states need to do to change their codes, their regulations, and standards. All voluntary. And then we said Then, to the 28 member states, you take your government science and tech institutes and your university science and tech institutes voluntarily and say, would they like to participate in a consortium with all these regions that are doing this so they can help each other out? So we create an esprit de corps, a collaboration, all voluntary and free. I would think that the Dutch presidency would want to do this, because this is a legacy that will live on far longer than the fires you're putting out during the 6 months you're there. And nobody, who would say no to this? It's a soft way to begin to get people together across regions and across countries so that we can begin to move this in and scale it. This is the key to scaling it.
And to
So
failing.
if anybody has any
Yeah.
friends in the Dutch presidency at the cabinet, please tell them that this should be done, and I'd sure like to sit down. I'm sure they can spare 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Next question. Over here.
My name is Gert-Jan Huisman. I'm in the supervisory board of Henk Willem van Dorp. And I have my own investment company, Anders Invest. You speak about the democracy of the marketplace. To me, it seems that this is only true for the starting phase of those new economies. They are network structures which have a strong tendency towards winner takes it all.
Yeah.
And then big monopolies are created. How do you see this?
It's true and it's not true. It is true that a lot of the look, for every Google, there's a Wikipedia. Wikipedia is the sixth largest website in the world. It's all nonprofit. Who would have thought that Jimmy Wales could pull this off? Everyone in the world constructs the knowledge of the human race free and checks each other's accuracy. Would you have thought that would work? This is network world, and what's interesting about it is it works with high accuracy. I'm going to just mention this for a moment. Apparently, everyone has nothing else to do after work. Because when I put something on our website, the next day there's like 15 comments. This is wrong, check that fact, your footnotes off. This is great. But what I'm saying is that there are also capitalist enterprises that set up these commons, and the payoff is if you're on that commons, you can produce and share all sorts of goods and services with each other and bypass the newspaper industry or the music industry, et cetera. But it's also true that whoever sets that platform up, they're using your data for commercial purposes for third parties. All right? We need to have that change. And what I suspect is going to happen, I'm going to put this on two levels. We're going to have a deep conversation, it's already begun, about what happens when an enterprise becomes so big that it's a public good and everybody needs it. I love Google. I'm telling you, it's the magic box for someone that researches. But when it starts to look like there's no other search engine and we have to rely on it, and they're using my data and I don't have a choice, then it starts to look like a global public utility and a monopoly. Facebook I don't use. They're always trying to get me to use Facebook. But, you know, when everybody's in the same family, Facebook, and then you have to communicate with each other, it starts to look like a public good. What did we do in the second industrial revolution when companies were so successful, they had something that was a public good that everyone needed and there was no alternative? In my country, we kept them in the private marketplace. The telephone company, the electricity companies, we regulated them as utilities. We liked the entrepreneurial spirit. We liked that they're making profit, but we regulated them in terms of access, standards, the whole works. This is going to happen again. It's naive to think that a handful of companies, Facebook, Google, Twitter, Alibaba, are going to be able to be global monopolies, and everyone's going to sit passively by and let this happen to them. This reminds me of the early factory system. You know, the owners beggared all the workers. They barely had enough food to survive the next day. And the workers finally figured out, well, you know, we're going to organize unions. And it was a 40, 50-year struggle, all right? So I don't think the young people are going to be passive. Now, let's look at Uber. This is a classic example of the contradiction here. Uber understood the platform. You set up GPS guidance, it's distributed, collaborative, blah, blah, blah. In fact, BlaBlaCar is what I prefer now that I just said that. And Paris Auto. But here's where they made their mistake. They set up this giant vertically integrated second industrial revolution business model to operate a platform whose architecture is distributed, collaborative, open source, and laterally scaled. And Google and and Goldman Sachs have put a lot of money in here. They don't get it. They think they're going to be able to own every driver, and the drivers own the cars. It's their liability. They're going to own every driver in the world, and they're going to send profits back to Uber. What's happened in the last 6 months since this thing has moved out? Everywhere I'm going, drivers are starting to say, well, what do we need Uber for? Anybody can set up GPS guidance with good software. This isn't magic. And why don't we create cooperatives like the Germany and Denmark did with electricity for renewables? We get low-interest loans from the banks. We set up cooperatives, and we pool our resources, and then the revenue stays with the owners. It doesn't go to profit to a third party, meaning we can do it cheaper. There's no profit to a third party. I believe, my own belief is Uber is not going to make it. I can't imagine every driver in the world being so damn dumb and lazy that they're going to let Uber control every car in the world and send money back to Goldman Sachs. I don't believe it. Do you? And take a look at BlaBla. It actually works. Now, there were early auto-sharing cooperatives, but they were before the digital GPS revolution. Now, you'd have to reinvent the cooperatives. This is going to happen. This is really absolutely, I'm sure this is going to happen, because the architecture rewards zero marginal cost and therefore cheaper and cheaper with lateral scale. Those are cooperatives. Those are cooperatives. So that's my hit on it.
Okay, we have some students in the audience as well. Where are they? Jill? Where's Jill? You had some questions prepared as well. This is your chance.
Okay, I'm going to intervene in a moment. I want everyone under 30 after this to be the ones asking the questions. Is that a deal? All right? And don't cheat. I'm going to ask for your driver's license to see if you're under 30. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'll tell you what, we'll make it 31 or 32 because I think the millennials go to 32.
Mr. Rifkin, thank you for your presentation. I'm Werner Vink of the Technical.
Go ahead.
I'm Werner Vink of the Technical University of Eindhoven.
Yeah, please use the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having a question on big scale generation. If you are looking to the Sahara, the potential that it is over there, and taking into account big energy companies and the money they have, don't you think that they will have the power to, how do you say it, outmarket the prosumer concept?
No. Germany went the opposite way. 4 big power companies, they tried to stop it. So Nellie Kroes came in, and she said, if you own the generation and you own the distribution lines, you're going to keep other people out because you're going to want to favor your own company. So we're going to cut it out. You can't own the generation and the distribution because then you're not an open energy internet. And that defeats the purpose of it. And or we'll give you a compromise. You can own both, but we're going to have a supervisory authority in every country to make sure it's open access. That's why she's left her print already in history. That's what's happening. And what we're finding in Germany, the big power companies are powerless, just like newspapers, magazines, book publishing, television, powerless. Powerless. Everyone created electricity cooperatives, got low interest loans from the banks, and they're getting premium for sending energy back to the grid. Power companies are producing less than 7%. They can't do it. And even some of the power companies in my group, I won't mention by name, but one CEO of one of our power companies in Bloomberg Business Week a few weeks ago said, we can't do this. It's zero marginal cost. We can't do it. But what they can do is begin to help manage the energy internet, but along with many other industries. Because you can't manage an energy internet without the telecom, the cable, the ITC, the electronics, the logistics. You have to bring a lot of industries together, and that means a lot of startups for your generation can create the apps and the connectivities and the platforms. There's plenty to do for both the big companies and the startups and the SMEs.
It was quiet in this section. Don't you have any questions over here? Okay. Lady.
After this, I would like people under 32 for a little bit as well. And I think you might be under 32, so I'm going to put you up there.
Well, I can fake it that I'm under 32. I looked at a list of the people that are in this room, and there's a lot of brain power in here. So and it's such a waste not to use it. So I was wondering, maybe where's your next appointment this week? Is it in Holland or outside? And is there a question that maybe we can answer for you with all this brain power here?
You know what? I thought the American work ethic was tough. Netherlands is unbelievable. They got me working here all day long. I got another whole presentation tonight. You know, I thought in Europe you work to live, not live to work. But the Netherlands actually is an exception. It's like America. I mean, the innovation. I'll be here tonight. But I'm going to pretty much discuss the same thing. But what I would like you to do is you got to spread the word. Read that memorandum. If you can, read the zero marginal cost society. If you want to pirate it, pirate it. If you want to buy it, buy it. Read it, pass the word, start the conversation. You know, it's really up to you to create the story. This story is a good story for the human race, and you got to pass the word. So you don't need me. You got a lot of brain power. So, you know, go viral. So, you know, this thing has been filmed. Is this going to be put out? What are you going to do with this film, the video?
Put it on the internet.
Huh?
Yeah.
You're putting it on
Share
YouTube?
it. Share it.
Yeah, you're going to put it on YouTube?
Yeah.
Open source tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
Then let everybody know about it. There's like hundreds of people here, hundreds of people tonight. Get everybody to cue in on the video, and then spread the word across the Netherlands, and then let all the young people here spread the word across Europe. You can do it.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm really fond that you are a fan of the sharing economy.
Where am I in
The sharing economy that you... yeah, I like it. Yeah, thanks.
Behind. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Hasret and I'm 27 years old, so you know now. I'm doing a professional doctorate in smart energy buildings and cities in Technical University of Eindhoven. And my question is, when you talk about the second revolution, if you think of the products, for example, there were motors and then they turned into cars, and the governments helped them to have the roads. Or if you think of phones, then the government or state were there to put the cables. But when you think of the third one now, right now, how do you think the governmental or state contribution should be? Because the examples you gave, for example, with BlaBlaCar or others, they can sustain by themselves, like self-sustainable solutions. But there are some of them, like PV, for example, you mentioned. Then the grid operators, okay, they should put effort, but how do you see the state and governmental organizations' intervention in that sense?
Okay. Yeah, so your question is, what is the role of government and state?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the role of government? What is so interesting about the European dream experiment here, this EU, you have a new philosophical underpinning that nowhere else in the world has. It's called the subsidiarity principle. It actually was originated in the Catholic Church, believe it or not. But it's embedded in your Maastricht political treaty. And the subsidiarity principle is that all power must go to the most local unit first. And then this is network unit. You start in the locality, in the region, and then whatever requires the next part of the network, you can go to the nation state and the EU. But these are networks. It's not bottom up. It's network and network and networks. This is going to bode you very well, because the third industrial revolution likes to go across continents, like Wi-Fi, till it reaches the ocean. Because it's a shared distributed system where the more people that come into the network, the more everyone benefits. Like, for example, energy. If you're in one part of Europe and the sun is shining, you can store it, put it up, send it to another part of Europe. If you're in another part of Europe and the wind's blowing, you can put it in. And it's the same with sharing the big data. You get more big data that can give you more analytics to share. It's the same with automated transport. So what this means is the continental union, the nation state, the region, the locality, those networks are what you need for a distributed third industrial revolution platform. So the African Union, which has been stumbling, is just now beginning to see this. The South American Union is very fledgling. ASEAN doesn't know how to address this, or China at this point. But what it means is that I think the regions will bring this in. And now that the EIB, European Investment Bank, has restructured the priorities so that the regions can get these monies, the regions have to work with regions like Wi-Fi, to connect. The nation state by itself will not do this. But what the nation state can do is encourage the regions across borders to do it, and then tell the nation states what they need to change the regulations, clear out all the old pathways, put in the incentives. But the regions are going to have to each customize their region, then connect. Then the EU will play the role of common codes and standards across the EU. So I believe this comes across from the regions, and I think this will be the actual ultimate turning point where the subsidiarity principle will actually come into play in the next 50 years in the EU, region to region. Across border, nation states will help referee between the regions in Brussels and help provide the incentives, codes, and standards. So each of those levels have to be involved. You can't do it without the other level. You have to have all of them, the municipality, the region, the nation state, EU.
Okay, we're running out of time, so we have only room for and time for one question.
People back there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mr. Rifkin, thanks for your talk. My name is Bastian Geris. I work for Circle Economy. And my question is basically twofold. On sharing economy, we're in Utrecht right now, and I live in Amsterdam, and I need a ride in a minute. I don't know where you're staying, though, but if it's in Amsterdam.
What was the question?
The first thing he wants is
say
to
you
have
needed
a
a
ride
ri-
to Amsterdam. That's
So
the first
you
question.
want me to get you a ride back to Amsterdam?
Are you staying
All
in
right.
Amsterdam, though?
We're going to do a little blah blah car. Who's got a car that can take this gentleman back to Amsterdam? All right, there you
Okay.
go. We just connected the network. All right, let me get one more.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Rifkin.